Meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. The first item on the agenda this evening is the appointment of chair. Can I call for nominations for chair, please? Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Curtin.
I nominate Councillor Janice Howard to be chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dehaney, is that seconded?
Yes, I second that nomination.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Councillor Howard.
Welcome, everyone, to the meeting. I'm Councillor Janice Howard and I will be chairing this meeting. I have to apologise for the absence of Councillor Paul Kohler, who should have been on the committee tonight, but he's been called away for personal reasons, and Councillor Mary Curtin has kindly stepped in. My other colleague is Councillor John Dehaney. As we go through the proceedings, other officers will introduce themselves as they speak. The hearing is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Please be aware that as the meeting is being held virtually, there may be a slight delay. If at any time anyone experiences technical difficulties, they should let the clerk know. In the event any party to the hearing loses connection and is no longer present in the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting immediately for a few minutes whilst we resolve the issue. In the event the issues cannot be resolved, the meeting will be rescheduled for another date as soon as practicable. Do I have any declarations of interest from councillors present?
No, Chair, no declaration from me.
Thank you. The subcommittee will follow the hearing procedures, a copy of which is included in the notice pack sent to all parties. As we have a large number of speakers this evening, we would request that if points have already been made, these are not repeated, and speakers should have a fair hearing within about 3 to 5 minutes so we can get through in a regular time. I'd now like to ask the legal advisor to inform those present that the subcommittee had a briefing prior to the hearing and confirm the procedure for clarification on any aspect of the application. Thank you.
I needed to unmute myself. I'm following following the councillors on this, I'm pleased to say. Yes, the committee had a meeting quietly before the meeting here, just to read the papers and understand the issues that were of importance within the papers that the committee's got before it. No legal advice was given during that meeting.
I now ask the licensing officer if there are any technical issues they feel should be brought to the panel's attention.
Thank you, Chair. It's Caroline Shaki here. There's no technical issues, but I wanted to make sure that I give you a summary of the application and that it was advertised. So if I could do that now, if it's all right, Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So this is Raynes Park Vale Football Club, which is currently operating a club premises certificate, Chair. And their club premises certificate is produced on pages 31 to 36 of the agenda. They've applied for a premises license, and the premises is not located in a cumulative impact zone. They've described the premises, Chair, that it's located next to St. George's playing field, which is just off Grand Drive. And to the rear of the property, there is a residential area. This is a detached ground floor only property with a car park for customers, supporters and players with an enclosed football pitch, which stands and a large open area to the side, backing onto Cannon Hill Common. The building comprises of a bar, lounge area, toilet, cellar and function room. There is also a deck terrace joined to the side of the building with outdoor seating. There are also dressing rooms with showers, toilets for the players on match days, that use on match days. The bar and lounge area is for the supply of alcohol, with potential of outside bar serving drinks to the decked area. The licensable activities that have been applied for, Chair, are detailed on pages 1 to 2 of the agenda. In terms of technical ability, this application was advertised, Chair, as required under the Licensing Act, which has resulted in 101 representations. And these representations include local ward members, friends from Cannon Hill Common, and Raynes Park and West Bands Residents Association. There are 29 representations, Chair, which are in support of this application. All the other relevant representations which are against the application relate to the 4 licensing objectives being undermined if this license were to be granted. All the representations are produced from pages 42 to 206 of the agenda. There were no representations received from other responsible authorities, Chair, but the applicant has agreed conditions with the police authority and trading standards, and these are detailed on pages 39 to 41 of the agenda. In relation to the representations that we received, Chair, I just wanted to flag up that one of the local residents by the name of Kam Sarabi has submitted further clarification to their representation, and this has been distributed as supplementary agenda for you to know. The applicant has volunteered measures in the operating schedule of the application, and these are details on page 23 of the agenda. The subcommittee can modify these conditions if they consider such steps appropriate for after hearing all the evidence this evening. All the copies of the representations, Chair, and the supplementary information that we received yesterday has been distributed to the applicant and the subcommittee. So we are asking the subcommittee to take such following steps as they consider appropriate for promoting the licensing objectives. And these are to grant the application, modify the conditions proposed in the operating schedule and the ones agreed with the police and trading standards, or to reject the application. And this is the application as I understand it, Chair, and all the technical information that you wanted for clarification. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. So,
Councillor Howard, Mr. Charalambidis has a question for you.
yeah, I saw that raised and I was just checking.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Leo.
Councillor, thank you very much. Good evening. I'm instructing to represent Ms. Gemma Watson and Edward Reeves. Their representations are at page 201 and 169 respectively. Perhaps Caroline could clarify for me whether a plan has been submitted with the application. I see there's a plan on page 37. It could be due to the location of that plan in the agenda, but I'd assumed that that was the plan that was attached to the club premises certificate. Which is it? Is it that it's part of the CPC, or is it the plan that was submitted for the application?
It should be the plan submitted with the application, but I can look through whilst we're in the hearing to look on the system to see if I can.
That would be helpful. In the meantime, Ma'am, you and your colleagues no doubt are aware of Regulation 23 of the premises regulations, which require that there is a plan to be submitted with the application. I won't go through Regulation 23 because Mr. Bishop is no doubt familiar with it, but I'll remind you of paragraph 8.34 of the Section 182 guidance, which is that the plans for an application must be clear and legible in all material respects. They must be accessible and provide sufficient detail for the licensing authority to determine the application. Equally, it's not just the licensing authority that must be able to comment on it, but you're familiar with paragraph 1.5 of the Section 182 guidance, the 5th bullet point, which is concerned with the participation by civil society so that they can make proper representations in the context of what they are seeing and be able to fully participate. This application makes reference to something amorphous referred to as a potential outdoor bar. It speaks of an ad hoc designated film area, and it also makes multiple references to a marquee. What we don't know is where this, and of course I'll deal with the vagueness of the language in due course. We don't know where the potential outdoor bar area will be. We don't know about the dedicated ad hoc film area, which can be both inside and outside. We don't know about the location of the marquee and the activities that could take place therein. We don't know about the capacity, the impacts, its location, all of which make it far from clear and far from legible what the material respects of this license being applied for along with the plan may be. Effectively, what you have is a defective application which isn't properly particularized, both in writing, but also very crucially, it is absent a clear and legible plan. And applying the principles in sonergy, you have substantial non-compliance with Regulation 23 of the premises regs. It totally invalidates the application. These are far from minor considerations. We are talking about an outdoor bar, an ad hoc film viewing facilities and marquees in an area surrounded by residential premises. We're not in a position to consider that or to make proper representations. The application is fundamentally flawed, and unless there has been a plan which properly incorporates all these features so that the responsible authorities, and most importantly, we who represent civil society and the local community, can comment upon, the only course of action that you have lawfully today is to reject the application summarily at this preliminary stage, because it is grossly unfair on the local residents to have to deal with an application that has been so poorly particularized in this document that purports to be a relevant plan for what is applied for. So on behalf of Ms. Watson and Mr. Reeves, I'm applying to you to consider that plan, to ask yourself whether it is clear and legible in all material respects, and if you agree with me that it is not, then to reject the application forthwith without the need for a hearing, because quite clearly the applicant needs to go away, do his homework and prepare his application properly and professionally and indeed respectfully, so that the local community can comment on actual plans rather than on something that is dealing with potentialities, ad hocs, and items that we're left to just imagine because we don't know what they say on the plan. Thank you very much.
I shall ask our legal representative, Guy Bishop, to respond to Leo regarding this issue.
Okay, I mean, that's a very fair point. It seems to me that you have a plan of premises, the interior of the premises. You have no other plans about the outside areas of where things are going to be located. I don't know if you want to hear from the applicant as to what the situation is on this. That might be the way forward.
Leo, are you in agreement that the applicant can talk?
Oh, absolutely. It would be very wrong for him not to. But I'm grateful for the indication by Mr. Bishop. You clearly don't have a sufficient plan, and the applicant ought to speak to that. Absolutely.
Right. Can the applicant now speak about this? You're on mute.
I'm unmuted now. This is Justin Whitehead, the applicant. Hi. Yes, the outside bar that we referred to is actually a mobile bar on wheels, which can be located anywhere within the licensed premises. So it wasn't prudent to put it as a fixed bar. It's just a 6 foot by 2.5 foot mobile unit that we would use to ease service on the outside decking area. Our long-term intention is to build the into the main bar to no longer require the mobile bar, but that was the purpose, the mention of an outside bar.
Sorry,
I didn't
sorry.
hear that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear exactly. You died halfway through. Could you repeat? I didn't hear what the long-term plan was.
Sure.
Justin, if you can just
Of course, no problem at all. Yes, if I can just clarify.
Yes, if you can just clarify why there are no outside drawings for both the bar and I think the film area and the marquee area was all.
Marquee as well.
Yeah. Funnily enough, the marquee area was after discussing with the local residents, we decided that it wasn't prudent to have marquees on the field. I was under the impression that it was included on the drawings of the field. We have two fields at Raynes Park Vale, one which is the football pitch and one which is an unused football pitch. It was the unused football pitch where we intended to have marquees. But after having a discussion with the local residents, it was clear that that wasn't going to work because we would be disturbing people. So we actually did away with that plan. So there will be no marquees on any of the premises. With regards to the outside bar that you asked me to clarify, the outside bar is a mobile unit which has been provided to us by Wimbledon Brewery. It's a 6 foot by 2.5 foot mobile unit on wheels, which we use to ease service for the outside areas of the licensed premises. So it is a movable unit, not a fixed piece, not a fixed bar.
Will that be located within the area that's marked as terrace?
Yes, that was where we intended.
Won't be anywhere else but that area.
Nowhere else, no.
Okay, and in terms of the films, will those be in that area marked terrace as well?
Again, the films were inside, not outside. So not on the terrace. No, we don't want any amplified sounds, music or otherwise outside.
So the films will no longer be outside?
No. We, when we originally made the application, quite a few of the locals were asking us about doing. After speaking to the locals, it's very clear that this wouldn't have been a nice thing to do and would cause some disturbance. So we decided not to do this at all.
Okay, so effectively the plans are correct in the sense that you're no longer going to have the marquee. The mobile bar unit is going to be on the terrace and the films are not going to be outside.
No, we'll just be showing films indoors with the correct licensing.
Okay, well, the committee will take that into consideration. Right. In those circumstances, I don't see a problem with the plans as they now are, because obviously we've had a clarification on what the application now is in relation to the plans. So that addresses that particular point, I think. Councillor, you can therefore, I suspect, move on to the applicant presenting their application.
Yeah. So as I explained at the outset of the hearing and order of speakers will be following the procedures including your agenda pack. We will start with the presentation by the applicant.
Shall I start that presentation now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify in my presentation a few things as to why we're doing this. At the moment, the club has a club certificate which entitles the club to serve alcohol between the hours of 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. to its members. There are not a lot of other rules included in this license which we felt that we're trying to build at the moment, is based around community as a community hub. It requires us to have CCTV. It doesn't require us to have sufficient lighting in the car park, and it doesn't require us to have a license holder on the premises at all times. These are things that we feel as a responsible business need to happen, especially the CCTV and the lighting. So putting a proper license in place allows us to make sure that these items are in place. So we will have sufficient lighting for what is now become a pass-through for 200 to 300 dog walkers a day, which is currently completely unlit. And I just wanted to clarify our opening hours as well, as there's been some discussion about this. So I'd just like to be very clear that our opening hours are 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. on Monday to Saturday, and they will be 12 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. on Sundays. So the extra hour that we've asked for on the license till 12 o'clock on Friday and Saturday is to allow us a little bit of flexibility should we be using our venue for weddings and parties of that sort. So we don't want to stay open till 12 o'clock every night. We want to be open until 11 p.m. That's all. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not staying open until midnight. The decking area will have very strict open and closing times also, as it's outside and we don't want to cause any disturbance. So the decking area will be open from 11 a.m. and will close and be unpopulated no later than 10 p.m. at night. So we don't want anybody out there on the decking after 10 p.m. at night. So drinks will stop being served out there at 9:30 p.m. and everybody will be made to leave the decking area at 10 p.m. So that's, and the final point I would like to make, it was just regarding there was quite a lot of comments about the local nature around the area. And this is something that's really, really important to us. Since we took over the club 9 months ago, we've actually appointed a team of volunteer gardeners who are now planting every day. We're planting wildflowers and trees. We actually planted a couple of oak trees last week in order to bring more to the area as opposed to take away from the area. We've had a very kind donation from one of the locals of 1,000 seed bombs, which are currently being planted around the area. One of the purposes of this is we've just installed 3 beehives onto the roof of the club in order to help. As I'm sure a lot of you know, the bee population is quite endangered at the moment. And we're part of a program to try and reverse that problem. So we've just installed 3 beehives which were populated last Friday, and a lot of the flowers that we were planting are to assist that program. So far be it from destroying local nature, we're doing everything we can to improve the situation there around the grounds. The final note on that subject, we've so far removed 4 skips full of dumped rubbish around that area, which it became a real problem. Now that the area is populated, we have a small coffee van there. Now that the area is populated, the crime from fly tipping, from vandalising, and kids on scooters has 100% stopped. We've been commended by the police on many occasions over the last 6 months for reducing the crime there to 0 from what was a problem area. So, and that is all I would like to say at the moment.
Thank you, Justin. I have picked up on chat 2 questions already from the representations here. So if I could ask Juliet to ask her 2 questions first.
Hi, thank you, Councillor. My 2 questions were, does that mean the application will be amended to reflect films inside only? And the other question is, will the licence therefore be amended to reflect the changes, as the hours that Justin has talked about are not the hours requested on the licence?
I believe that the hours requested on the licence are what we intended to go forward with. The licensing hours that we requested, we discussed with the police, and they asked us to make a couple of amendments, mainly to Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, which they asked us to amend to 8 AM to 2 PM in order to let the Christmas in and let New Year in. We asked for 3 PM. So that amendment will be made. However, we do want to keep the current application at midnight for Friday and Saturday, so we can have that flexibility to be a bit later if we're using the venue for parties, for weddings, basically.
So that's not, so Justin, that's not what you,
Yes.
you told the councillors. You specifically told the councillors the opening hours you had requested were, you intended to use 11 in the morning to 11 PM Monday to Saturday and 12 to 10:30 PM on Sunday, and those are not the hours requested on the current licence.
Yes.
So I would ask you to be very clear to the councillors for the hours that you are asking for, which are more extended.
Certainly.
And this is right in the middle of a residential area. So
Certainly.
please don't be disingenuous. Please
Certainly.
be clear about the hours that you are asking for, which are more extended than you have just informed the councillors.
Certainly, yes. The hours that I just referred to were the opening hours, not the licensing hours. So I will be clear on what hours that we've requested from a licensing point of view. So we asked for our license to be Monday to Thursday, 10 AM until 11 PM. Fridays and Saturdays, we asked for an extension 10 AM until 12 PM. And Sunday, I believe, was 11 AM until 11 PM.
Thank you.
Do I have any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, Chair, can I ask the applicant a question?
Certainly.
Now, you say you want an extension to 12 PM on Fridays and Saturdays. That's
Yes.
only for weddings and parties.
Yes.
But we know that weddings and parties attract a lot of people. What about the noise element at that time of the morning?
We're
Do
very,
you think it's going to affect the residents?
we're very aware that element will have to be controlled. As licensees, as me personally, as a licensee, it is my responsibility to control that noise management. Another point that we agreed to with the police, if we stay open after 11 o'clock, we must appoint 2 registered security officers with body cameras to be present until every guest has left the premises. The reason for this is just to maintain that quiet in a built-up in an area such as Raynes Park, Vale. So we must have security there.
So you're going to use the securities on Fridays and Saturdays?
Yes, only if we extend the license if we have a party, so that there's no worry about having that noise. So we have that noise control in place.
Okay.
Councillor Bakari, do you wish to ask a question of the applicant?
I actually just want to make a short statement. Is there time for that
That's in the
stage.
later?
Councillor Bakari, that's in the next section when
Fine. Sorry about that. Late to the meeting.
Speak.
Okay.
Right.
No
yeah. This is specifically for questions for the applicant. I have Leo with his hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Is there any indication of what the capacity of this venue is generally, and also what is the capacity for the weddings and the parties?
May I answer that question? Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. We have a capacity of 120 people for weddings. This is the amount of people that we can sit down on 5-foot round tables comfortably, and in one room of the premises. So that is our capacity for weddings. For a capacity of standing guests, we've asked for 200 people, which is what the current configuration of the building with fire doors, as they are at the moment, allows us.
And thank you for that. And the consumption isn't now a licensable activity, but you have this disused field and this wider area.
Yes.
Are you undertaking to offer a condition that there'll be no consumption in any of the grounds of the premises?
The disused field, which is currently in a quite a bad state, where we have just recently appointed groundskeepers to level that field and use it as a picnic area, so we can allow guests to sit there in a green area. We will not permit alcohol anywhere other than the licensed premises, however.
Right, so if I come with my picnic, I won't be able to bring alcohol onto your site, and I'll also won't be able to buy alcohol from your bar and take it to your picnic area to drink.
No. The alcohol that we sell must be consumed on our premise, on our licensed premises. The property is private property, so we must insist that people are not bringing alcohol onto the premises and consuming themselves.
What are the hours and location of your coffee van?
The coffee van is open from 7:30 in the morning until 6 p.m. at night.
And where is it located?
It's located opposite the clubhouse in the car park. May I just point out that the coffee van is not part of the license application and will not be serving alcohol.
Thank you. Ma'am, thank you. Those are the questions that I have.
I have a question from Babs. Would you like to ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm concerned about glasses being used on the terraces and the risk to local residents of broken glass. Years ago, we used to have problems, and I know my cats used to come in with cut paws because of broken glass that were left by people out using the club facilities. That's all I have to say on that. I'd like reassurance that maybe plastic cups and glasses were used on the terrace and not glass ones, like a lot of pubs do in pub gardens.
To be honest, Babs, if I may answer that question, after clearing the area where the decking has been put, we cleared away hundreds of broken glasses. So I can honestly say your question is quite appropriate. We will use polycarbonate glasses for outside service. Polycarbonate glasses are unbreakable glasses that feel like real glass but can be reused, because one of the things that's really important to us is that we're using sustainable items and not just throwing away plastic all the time. So we've actually purchased polycarbonate glasses for that very purpose.
So in the next order of questions, I have Juliet, Holly, then Mary Jane Jeans. So if I can ask Juliet to ask her question.
So my question is, I'll link them all together. The disused field that you're talking about backs directly onto the local residents' houses.
Yes.
It's open to all, Justin. People can come and go. It's an open area of land. How are you going to guarantee, A, that music outside doesn't disturb the residents, but B, how on earth can you guarantee that people don't bring alcohol to that picnic area? Because you have no fencing, it's a public open way. There's no way of stopping people coming and sitting, plonking down and drinking. You would have no control on that. You have no way of preventing that unless you've got security and you then put gates, and you'd have to do that all day long. How could you do that?
It's really important to the owner of the land that we do allow access through that land, because it's been requested on many occasions. So we won't be putting a gate there to prevent people from walking through there. There's 200 to 300 dog walkers a day pass through that land. So we wouldn't like to stop that happening. As far
so how
as
do you guarantee the alcohol point?
Yeah, as far as your point is a very good one. We will do everything we can as responsible licensees to ask people to respect our wishes. We will have signage there to ask people not to bring their own alcohol onto the premises. And we will manage the situation with the staff that now will be there on a daily basis. So obviously people are going to break the rules, and we are there for a reason to enforce those rules. We don't want to be horrible about this situation, so we'll put the correct signage in place to make sure people know the rules on the entrances, and then we will just try and manage it as absolutely best we can. Yes.
So next I have Holly Smith, then Mary Jane Jeans, then Councillor Mary Curtin. Holly, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, yes, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions that I'll ask in one go. Apologies, I've just had a baby, she's 10 days old, so if you hear some crying, that's what it is. But my questions that I've got are, I appreciate you've gone over the hours of operation, but what time are you expecting everyone actually off-site and the door locked and closed? Because I appreciate it's not just people leaving, but it's the tidy up operations as well. Vehicles coming and going, may that be music or the catering staff or whoever that might be. So when actually is the site closed? The field that you talk about being a picnic area, what's great about that field is a great asset for the environment and for our local wildlife. So if you just spend time sitting and looking at that field at the moment, you'll see the foxes playing there, you'll see the woodpeckers come. It is a wildlife area, and I'm concerned about creating it into a picnic area. People can come bring their own picnic, bring their own alcohol and play their own music, which can happen, will really disrupt the area and create it into something it's not. My final question is concerned about what is the exit point for customers from the site? Are you sending people to Cannon Hill Common where it's unlit and gets very muddy during the winter? Are we sending them back past the club, the Grand Drive, which is about 300 metres, I make it, with no designated area for people to walk and no street lighting? I feel like operations till 11 p.m, where are people exiting? Which direction are you sending them in? And how can it be safe when there's no sort of structured lighting? And if there is a disturbance and police are called, I just don't see how you or they could contain it with so many areas leading off to big fields and leading on to Cannon Hill Common. And so they're my three questions wrapped into one. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the last question that you asked regarding the security aspect. At the moment, we have absolutely nothing there as far as lighting is concerned, and it's quite an unsafe area. We'll be lighting the area of the car park and our the drive that is leading down to the playing fields. The rest of the driveway that leads onto Grand Drive will not be lit by ourselves. We'll do as much as we can from the clubhouse, but the remaining section of the drive will not be lit. So that's our honest opinion. As far as people leaving through the cut through, which goes onto Cannon Hill Common, this is not something we encourage at all. Because, as you quite rightly say, it did get quite boggy this winter, and we did, however, find that when the darker hours came in during the winter, people stopped using that as an access point, because there is absolutely no lighting at all there. So again, whatever we can do to make that safer, whether we put some signage in place asking people not to use that as an exit, we will do whatever we can to make that as safe as possible. With regards to the field area and the nature side of things, since we've been there over the last 9 months, we've actually put quite a lot of bird feeders in place. And as I say, we're doing a lot of planting at the moment. So we've actually quite positively increased the amount of wildlife that is visiting the area. As you know, the foxes only come at night, and we've actually cleared a pathway to make the foxes' life. They come from the French school into our property, and we've created a gateway there to make that all easy for them. So we're doing everything we can. We're not removing any of the bushes that are there. There's a lot of blackberry bushes there. All of those will remain so that they feed the bees and they allow the nature to survive as it is at the moment. We've just finally, due to the bird feeders that we've put down there, re-attracted the woodpeckers, which is something that we've been trying to get back for a while. But we're doing everything we can to attract, not to scare away. So, and as I'm sure you've seen, with the field area being used as a picnic area, this isn't something that we're promoting. It's something that locals are choosing to use as an area. We will under no circumstances allow music on there, because that's just not what we're about. We're doing everything we can and wish to do everything that we can to protect the locals' noise levels. So again, as Babs has been doing via email, any reports come straight to us, and we'll manage that situation as best we can, as quickly as we can. We do want the area, we do want the locals to feel free to use that area. It's really important to us that it can be appreciated, but there will be rules in place with regards to music and alcohol. What was the other question you started with?
Just that you did the operational hours, but when do you expect to actually turn the key and everyone be outside?
Yes.
So everyone left?
Yes. So I think realistically, our guests must leave the premises within 20 minutes of closing time, and that has always been part of licensing law. The cleaners, I would expect to be out of there by midnight if we're closing at 11 o'clock at the latest. So the staff, however, are under very clear expectations to not be making any noise. We have already had the signage printed as well to place in all the doorways of the premises to be respectful of local residents when leaving the premises, which again is something that the police asked us to put in place.
Now, I have listed to speak Mary Jane Jeans, followed by Councillor Mary Curtin, and I now have Caitlin and Babs in the queue. maybe this is the time to remind people that we have another section where we have 8 representations to come, and can we try and focus on the key aspects of questioning the applicant in the interest of not repeating ourselves later on in the next item. Mary Jane Jeans, can I ask you to speak now? Question.
Thank you, Councillor. My question, coming back to the applicant's comment that you were going to have 2 security people with body cameras until all guests have left the premises. I understood by that you meant the licensed premises, but what about the wider area? And I'm slightly picking up on what Holly Smith said. Will these security people be at the entrances, telling people to be quiet, making sure that they're not disturbing the residents until all the guests are actually back onto the public highways? Thank you.
The security guards are to patrol our premises in as far as the car park and the drive leading down to the playing fields, which so that is the majority and the furthest distance away from the local residents behind the clubhouse. We won't. We do have a responsibility to lock the gate to the Prince George playing fields once we leave, but we won't be having security down on that main gate next to Grand Drive. Our security will just patrol our car park and the road leads down to Prince George playing fields.
Right, could I ask Councillor Curtin, Mary Curtin, for her question?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask Justin just to clarify something for me. In answer to one of the residents' questions, you said that only plastic or no glass was allowed outside for people with alcohol.
Polycarbonate.
Thank you, Guy. But then on another occasion, to another resident, you said alcohol would only become consumed on the premises. So
no, yes, sure, certainly. What I said was the licensed premises, and the licensed premises that we've applied for includes the decking area. So people will be allowed to consume alcohol on the decking area, but it must be in polycarbonate glasses. So
okay,
we'll only allow glassware inside the building.
Thank you.
I now have Caitlin.
Hello. I have just 2 questions, mainly to do with the idea of a picnic area and things like this. Also the bird feeders. They can attract a lot of rats. We've already had rat problems on Berrylands already. So this is a worry. And also I'd just like Justin to clarify, when he says lighting, what does that specifically mean? Because we're on number 15, so we back directly onto this. We're the closest house to the Raynes Park Vale. Most of the back of our house is made from glass. Is this going to be more floodlights? More like, how much lighting are we talking?
The lighting points away from your house. So we have the intention. There's 2 floodlights which were pointing towards the French school to light the car park and the driveway, and that is it. So there's no light pointing towards the back of the building at all. The only light that we will have installed there's a fire exit which will only be used in emergencies. So we'll have a break glass point on the door, so it's not used willy-nilly to open for fresh air during a party or anything silly like that. So we will put a light above that will react to those doors being opened in an emergency situation. so they will not be illuminated. So there'll be 2 lights pointing away from your house, not towards it. And regarding the rat problem, it's again a very good point. When we got there 9 months ago, when we started our coffee business there, we were absolutely overrun with rats. The blackberry bushes that had been allowed to grow all the way around the car park had come completely uncontrollable. So we've cut those back to a manageable state now. And one of the members, one of the footballers of the Raynes Park Vale Football Club is a pest management person. So he has put traps, humane traps down around the perimeter, and we've now completely done away with the problem. So yes, there was definitely a big rat problem there, and we've dealt with that now and taken it away. And that is something that we will continue to manage. Speaking to the guys at the French school, every 2 years, there has to be a real effort to do away with the rat population there. But we intend on doing it on a daily basis, basically. So we have humane traps there at the moment, which are refreshed every 2 weeks. So yes, it was a problem.
Thank you. I then have Juliet and then Andrew Barwick. So Juliet, you have a further question?
Sorry, I am happy if other people ask them. The last licence issued to the Raynes Park Valley Football Club insisted on inside music only because it was evidence that outside music caused nuisance and disruption to family life. The premises that you're looking to licence with this new changes and the houses have not changed the location. So I'm unclear why you have applied for outside music late at night, and how can you say that won't disrupt the residents, but more importantly, how can you ensure that applicants, residents like Babs and Caitlin will, and the rest of us, because sound carries at night, that we don't have to listen to your music in what is a quiet residential area? That's one of my major concerns.
Yes, and a very good one. And I obviously I am under legal obligation, and we will not be having amplified music outside. As far as music inside is concerned, we have purchased a decibel meter so that we can check on a regular basis what the impact of any music inside will be to the outside. We have gone to lengths to soundproof the walls of the dancing area of the clubhouse. We've put in a 1-inch layer of soundproofing throughout the whole room. And we've purchased a decibel meter to keep a check on this. Obviously, if we're disturbing people and those people let us know, we will do something about it. But music will never, ever be going beyond 12 midnight on a Friday and Saturday, and beyond 11 o'clock on a midweek day.
Justin, in all fairness, that is, I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. I work very long hours. I can tell you now that if one of our residents has a party, 10 or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, when you've got a child, you're trying to put them to bed, listening to music, that is an extremely long amount of time. So my concern remains outside music. How do you guarantee that
there's no outside music? There will be no outside music.
Okay, because your license specific.
We've spoken to the local. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you then. We spoke to the locals, and it became very clear that outside music is not something that we want to do. So under no circumstances will there be outside music.
So can we have the license?
As I said, I'm legally obliged to tell the truth there.
Thank you, Justin. So very quickly, can I ask the councillors then that the licence is amended to reflect no outside music? Thank you.
So I have Andrew next to speak. Then I have in the chat, Caitlin and Maria, who also wish to speak. Andrew? You're on mute, Andrew.
Sorry about that. Back again. Hello, Justin. I'll make my representation later on in the program, but I'm just something I could do with clarification on is to do with the car parking, please. You're talking about a capacity of 200 people, 120 people. Do you plan to make different arrangements for car parking to what is there at the moment? If so, what changes do you envisage, please?
The changes that we're making are very simple. We do not encourage people to drive to our premises. Those car parking spaces are for members during match days. Obviously, if we do have a wedding there, we'll allow the wedding car to come up the drive and things like that. We are actually installing another barrier at the bottom of our drive that leads on to Prince George playing fields to try and prevent that. The car parking is there for football purposes, not for licensed premises purposes.
Thank you.
Caitlin? Maria? Oh, Caitlin.
Sorry, no, Maria can go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, we got cut off for a second there. So it wasn't really a question. What we just posted in the chat was obviously till 10 o'clock at night, it's 3 hours past our baby's bedtime, and people talking loudly in a beer garden is still going to affect that. And just to be clear, our back gate's 33 steps from this beer garden, and it's his bedroom that faces it.
Well,
So
it's actually not just our baby's bedroom, because it's also Caitlin next door, and there's 2 other babies just 3 or 4 streets over who are all facing onto this. And then, of course, on the other side, there's a newborn baby as well. So I think people outside drinking heavily and, you know, music and partying or whatever, like it's going to create noise in itself, not just the amplified music kind of argument. I think if you have up to 200 people in this kind of licensed premises and then picnicking, all that kind of stuff, it's going to create a huge disturbance to the local community, of which is mostly full of, you know, young families and children. Thank you.
Justin, do you wish to make a response to that?
My only response is we intend to manage this business as licensees in a responsible fashion. There will be people talking outside. There won't be any music outside. And the 200 people to which we referred was the inside capacity. We do not want 200 people out on the decking. So maybe we can agree a maximum number of people that will be on the decking at any time, which is something that we haven't considered before. But the only thing I can do is assure you that we will manage the situation to the best of our abilities. And if we are disturbing you, then please let us know. I would hope we have put a barrier up against the decking area, which will be a sound barrier. And we've also left all of the blackberry bushes there as well to create as much of a barrier as we can between you and us. But all I can do is assure you we'll manage the situation as best we can.
So unless anyone else wishes to ask a question, I am happy to move on to the representations by the people present. I have 8 people listed to speak, and I will take them in the following order: Councillor Bakari, Mary Jane Jeans, John Elvidge, Andrew Barwick, Caitlin Boxwell, David Brum, Holly Smith, and Leah Shamroides. Councillor Bakari, would you like to speak?
Hello, everyone, and apologise for my background. I want to represent the residents of West Barnes as West Barnes councillor, and on behalf of them I am making this representation to say that we have very serious concerns about the application as it came originally. We fully support a place for locals to enjoy refreshments and entertainment and value local businesses thriving in the area, but we do need to make sure that it doesn't impact local residents with noise and pollution. So that is why we came to the opinion that we did. We've heard lots of assurances, lots of promises today, and I'm really grateful for Justin for taking that time to talk to us today and answer those questions. Can't be easy. However, despite the fact that he says he has talked to local people and local community, I don't think he really has brought the local community with him. When we wrote to our residents in the local area where the vicinity will be, there's been nothing but worry and concern. We didn't have anyone write back to us as councillors in support of the licensing application. In fact, lots of concerns that have been raised already with young families who are living in the area who are very worried about the impact that it will have on not just noise but also pollution as well. One of the things that I was quite interested in by was the assurance that you had that there would be no worries of antisocial behaviour, and that even the police were very impressed with what you've already achieved. Now, as a councillor, I have been receiving recently, because of lots of reasons, maybe the easing of lockdown restrictions, but a rise of antisocial behaviour in the area in West Barnes. People buying drinks just in the local area from newsagents, from the local petrol station, and then sitting just outside people's homes drinking. There is no guarantee that that won't happen here as well. I can understand that there are going to be some, efforts made. You're going to have security, trying to improve, making sure that these things don't happen, but there are no guarantees that these things won't happen. The main areas that we've said in our representation is about public safety, the lack of lighting. You have mentioned that, but we're not sure of exactly how well that's going to make sure that that area is safe through the lighting. We're also very concerned that you said that there won't be people encouraged to drive there, but yet I'm sure it will happen. There will be people who want to drive there, or at least be dropped off by cars. And that is another concern for lots of residents. Another concern is emergency vehicles and making sure that they have access. The other main areas, light, noise and pollution. Yes, you've touched on that as well. And we do understand that you're taking on those concerns. We'd like to make sure that there is more guarantee that those issues are covered. Prevention of public nuisances, again with the noise and the litter and the general antisocial behaviour. You say that the music will be inside. However, most of our local residents, if they were to have a party on their road, will let their neighbours know to say we're going to have some music inside their premises, and that's just something that they do locally. So to say that this is not going to impact their lives I would disagree. I think it will disturb them, and many of them have said to me that they will be going to bed, like they've said here today, earlier than 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Prevention of crime and disorder, which I've touched on before as well, is another area. Protection of children from harm. There's a school playing field nearby, opposite the clubhouse. We're worried about the consumption of alcohol impacting the children in the area. The environment has been mentioned. We've talked about rats, but we need to make sure that we recognise the fact that this land is on metropolitan open land, which should be protected as a green belt land. Now, I appreciate that lots of these issues have been already mentioned. You have also done that, Justin, by answering some of the questions. I personally did write to you myself as a councillor I was hoping to hear back from you. I left my phone number to have a chat. I just think, you know, if we'd had that conversation before and brought the community with us, we wouldn't be having all these concerns that I've had to deal with as a local councillor. Lots of people are working from home at the moment. Yes, it kind of raises kind of anxiety in some people because of these situations, and I think we need to bring the community together. Local residents need to feel they have some control of what's happening in their local area. The communication between yourself and the local area could have been better, and I would have been really, really happy to have had a meeting with you beforehand. So I'm really grateful for this time that you've given us today. I'm afraid that the councillors, Councillor Bakari and Councillor Bailey, were disappointed by the licensing application as it stood. Did get a lot of concerns from our residents when we wrote to them, and like I said, we didn't have anyone who wrote to us who was supporting the application, unfortunately. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Jane Jeans.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. And thank you, councillors. I'm speaking as...
Can I just remind Justin, he will get a chance to ask questions of the representations at the end of the 8 speeches.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Mary Jane, carry on.
Opportunity to summarise in
Okay, I'm speaking as chair of the Friends of Cannon Hill Common, a group of volunteers who help the council maintain and enhance this open space. Cannon Hill Common and Prince George's playing fields are metropolitan open land, and they are sites of importance for nature conservation, while the Common is also a local nature reserve. The idea of having a pub in the middle of this space is unacceptable. We all know that enjoying outdoor exercise is good for both physical and mental health. The benefits of the playing fields and the Common are seen every day. Families flying kites, playing games, friends picnicking, teams practicing and playing, people taking quiet, refreshing walks and exercising their pets, macaws as well as dogs, in case you're wondering. The enjoyment of these pleasures would be severely curtailed by having a pub with all the associated noise. Therefore, it would be creating a public nuisance. Since the coffee and food stall opened and the artisans' markets at weekends, the council's contractors and our volunteers on the Common are dealing with increased littering, which detracts from the beauty of Cannon Hill Common, thus creating a public nuisance for those enjoying the Common and taking their exercise there. Users of the field and Common value the biodiversity and the beauty of the natural environment. Noise and light pollution would drive away many species, such as the bats which feed in and around the football ground, over the field behind the football club nearest to Berrylands, described by the applicant as the disused field. It was once a practice field. And we fear that if this licence were granted, then the lighting put between the clubhouse going down towards the public right-of-way between Whatley Avenue and Grand Drive, that will have a negative effect on bats as a foraging area and on the tawny owls, the little owls that also feed. I also worry that public safety will be compromised by having a pub so far from the public highway and from public transport. The PTAL level is very low. After dark and in bad weather, customers will be tempted to drive if this application is granted. Ideally, yes, we should all walk to our local pubs, but it's raining, you want a drink, you know it's not going to happen. The field is used for sport and relaxation. It should not become used as a car park, which will degrade the grass. And that's what's likely to happen if the car parking spaces used by the football club near the clubhouse are full. We're going to have parking of cars further away on the grass. Yet another example of public nuisance. Currently, hospitality at the football club is for members and their guests only. The applicant's intention to open a pub wine bar is totally unsuitable at this site. Condition 2, please check your agendas, should be upheld. There should be no exterior decking. All hospitality at all times should remain indoors, inaudible from the exterior. The premises should remain for club members only, and this license application should be refused. I could say much more, and those who know me know I often do, but I'll end with a quote from one resident. "We are so lucky to live in such a happy and tranquil place. Please help us to keep it this way." Thank you.
Thank you. I now have John Elvidge.
Madam, can you see and hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you very much. I'm speaking on behalf of the Raynes Park and West Barnes Residents Association, and you will have seen in the papers our lengthy letter of objection to these proposals. All our members in the roads surrounding this site will be badly affected by this application, and they've let us know that in clear terms. The site is totally unsuitable for what, in effect, would be a public house. It's not next to Prince George's playing field, it's in the middle of Prince George's playing fields. And they, as Mary Jane has said, have the protected status of metropolitan urban land, where building is only permitted for sporting purposes and purposes associated with that. The fields are also subject to controls imposed by Merton Council in 2009, restricting the use of commercial activities on the sites. They are limited to 28 occasions in a calendar year, and that number is always taken up on the other part, the major part of the fields, with car boot sales, antique fairs, a circus, and other events. It's important to note this site is some 300 meters from Grand Drive, which is the only access by vehicles, and that's only a track. And there is no lighting at all upon the track to the football clubhouse, which is along the track, and then you turn right and it's up the hill a bit. While the fields are used for recreation in the daytime, they are completely deserted during the hours of darkness. The pedestrian routes, apart from to Grand Drive, are to Watley Avenue and Meadow Close, and they have no lighting on them either. And we have heard nothing from the applicants today to say that any lighting is being sought for anywhere except near the clubhouse itself, and nor is there going to be any security except in the close vicinity of the premises. We do hope that the committee, if they have the time to do so, will look at the site for themselves and they'll see the problems. The site has, of course, no police patrols at all. There is very limited parking. There's only room for about 6 or 7 cars around the clubhouse, and when the footballers come, they actually park down behind the houses in Grand Drive to the left of the site. So there can't be any parking in the site. And if you're going to have 200 people on occasion, they're all going to park in Grand Drive, which is a very busy highway with a bus route, and it's quite narrow. And we have no indication from the applicants how they're going to deal with that. Now, the site, as I say, is isolated geographically, but it's on high ground, and noise and light pollution is going to be audible and visible over a very large area, and including in particular Berrylands, Cannon Close, Grand Drive, Meadow Close, and Parkway. Now, the clubhouse has at present an alcohol license which has major and detailed controls to protect local residents from noise pollution and unruly and antisocial behaviour. The noise has to be contained within the clubhouse building and stewards appointed. And alcohol can only be served to members and their guests and not to the public at large. The present proposals include decking, and that actually has been carried out by the applicants even before this application was made. The proposals don't include the building of any new premises. Apparently it's going to be contained within the existing football clubhouse. We have no indication of how some 200 people are going to deal with their toileting facilities. And residents do have concerns, as you've seen from the letters, about public urination. Decking's being built, tables and chairs have been provided outside, and these do carry noise over a very wide area, even if alcohol isn't being served there. It was the proposal of the applicant, until he gave some evidence today, that the films and music would be on the decking during the day and in the evening. He's now modified that, but the noise would carry even from inside premises. An artisans market has grown up since this spring on both days at weekends, with a number of market stalls. And the number of events being held here is already in excess of the number permitted by the council's law, limiting events to 28 days a year. And both I and other residents have seen already alcohol being served at these weekend artisans markets from a beer tap. It would appear illegally to members of the public. And I ask you to bear that in mind in considering the evidence of the applicant. If you want the evidence for that, it's on pages 73 and 130 of your bundle. That seems to me to be entirely illegal. The proposals are the provision of alcohol to the public for very extensive periods of time, from mid-morning to very late at night, and on 365 days a year. This will inevitably result in huge public disturbances of all kinds and noisy coming and going of cars at all hours, right up apparently till midnight, and even cleaners coming in at late hours and going out at midnight. Cars used to be prevented from coming onto the site at night and when football was not being played, to prevent antisocial behaviour, which has included the torching and dumping of cars. We are concerned that children play on the fields and in the Lycée grounds opposite, and will inevitably be exposed to drunken and boorish behaviour if people can come and drink all day long. The committee will have read the very large number of letters by local residents in opposition to the proposals and the strength of feeling contained in them. These far outweigh those letters in support, which in our view understate completely the reality of what this will mean. Yes, it's very nice when you're walking your dog to go to the present cafe and sit and have something to eat, but that's in the daytime when it's fine weather. These proposals cover the whole year, including larger months of the year when it's going to be dark and nasty outside. So we would urge the committee to reject the scheme in its entirety, and we say that it cannot be saved by any kind of conditions being attached to it. Thank you for your consideration.
I have Andrew Barwick next.
Hello, everybody. Can I be heard? Hello. Yes. Am I heard?
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you. I'm having trouble with my muting here. I've put in quite a detailed objection to this in writing, and I don't propose to repeat all the points I've made there. And although I also have a great deal of sympathy for the residents of Berrylands and Cannon Close who live so close to the clubhouse. But I would just like to talk to the committee a little bit about where I live and where my neighbours live, which is on the junction of Grand Drive and the access road, which contains the footpath and the cycle path between Watley Avenue and Grand Drive. The last 100 yards or so of that road is on the outside of the gates of Prince George's Field, and between the gates and Prince George's Field, the distance is, I guess, about 20 cars can park if they try hard. On a normal day, we might get 6 or 7. But in the past, when the football club have had events, we have experienced a lot of disturbance and a lot of noise. It's been a rare thing, but it does happen, so that when the people come away from the club with have a very nice time and a few drinks, they can be quite noisy, especially the younger ones, especially after a party or a wedding, that kind of event. We find they tend to conglomerate on Grand Drive around the houses where I live and close to the bus stop, the 163 bus stop. And on a number of occasions, there's been problems with that in the past. Not frequently, but nevertheless, it's very noisy. It wakes us up. Generally, somebody calls the police, and it's a most unpleasant experience. And I think that definitely constitutes a nuisance and disorderly behaviour and so forth. And if this turns into a normal, busy, successful pub, and I would expect it to, if this license is granted, because Justin is clearly a talented and professional publican, and I think it would be a very nice venue for a pub. But he's already said that his security and his concerns are not going to cover the area where I live, which is outside of the area of the field, but it's where all of the vehicle traffic and most of the foot traffic will be entering into the site and from the site late at night, and it will be late at night. And I would like the committee please to take into account that, and if they have an opportunity to come down and look at on the ground, they will see that the access is very, very limited, very narrow. Very different, for example, to the two pubs, the Hand in Hand up in Wimbledon. So it's a similar sort of situation. People come out and sit on the lawn in front of it, very busy, very successful. But there's lots of public roads to and from those sites. One other aspect I would just like to mention too, we have a social network going now called Nextdoor, where there's quite a lot of support being mentioned for Justin's efforts, which have been very well received in terms of the coffee bar and the markets. But a lot of people are saying, well, if Sutton United can do this without problems, or if the Old Rats can do this without problems, we should allow the Raynes Park to do the same sort of thing. And I would just mention that neither the Old Rats nor Sutton United have a pub. They have a club where the members can buy drinks there. For example, at Sutton United, you join the stadium club. I'm a member. And if anyone is not behaving properly or the guests are not behaving properly, then the club can do something about it. Whereas a pub that's open for everybody, anyone in the public can go, it won't be so easy to control bad behaviour. I would say it's impossible for the publican to control bad behaviour at the end of an evening, especially if younger people have been drinking a bit too much. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Caitlin Boxwell. Caitlin Boxwell.
Hi, sorry, one moment.
Hi there. I'm Caitlin Boxwell's partner. We live at number 15 Berry Lanes. It's more of it's kind of a personal thing because I'm just wondering who these locals were that Justin, you were speaking with, because we actually had to request you, and we live maybe 50 or 60 feet directly away from the decking area. And I just really feel it's a shame that, you know, even the councillor previously, was it Hina? Is that her name? She said that you didn't reply to her either. So it's just really bizarre to me that you really haven't engaged the locals, in all honesty, because we're the closest to you and we had to request a meeting with you.
Have you finished?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Right, thank you. David Brum.
Sorry. That was David Brum.
Oh, that was David Brum. Had you listed separately to speak?
Yeah.
Holly.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Hello?
Just about.
All right, sorry, I'll move this forward a little bit. Thank you. So just taking into account what you said at the start, to not repeat what other people have said, a lot of good comments have already been made. I just have a few additional points to add. When we were talking about the rat scenario and keeping it limited, the current disposal of the rubbish and the waste at the club is outside, and it is open to vermin, and it's not enclosed, and it's often, as I submitted in the photo, the buildings open, the stuff on the ground. So that really encourages rats, and I've seen foxes and rats in there when walking by. So that would have to be looked and addressed. With regards to the parking piece, and I think Justin mentioned that they would have to lock the gates now to Prince George's playing field. Currently, I believe that gate is locked by 8 p.m. each night, and I'm assuming that is because to stop public disturbances, to stop people going on the grass with cars, and to just manage that area. So once again, that gate's going to be left open and not managed until it's locked again when the cleaners leave at 12 o'clock at night. So that has to be a factor to take into consideration as well. And I guess finally, from a personal point of view, you know, we moved to the site because it's so beautiful, so peaceful. And as Merton Council state on their website, Cannon Hill Common is a piece of the countryside which is enjoyed by dog walkers and people trying to relax. Having music and lights will really hamper that experience, and I think it's really inappropriate. And having, a bit like Caitlin, a young baby, having music on till 10, 11 o'clock well, I know that's been taken away, sorry, music, but disturbances and going on late will still affect our baby. And to be honest with you, we would probably have to look at the club's list of entertainment activities in advance and schedule our days around it to ensure that we're not disturbed. So say weddings going on late and things like that would really affect our planning on what we did on those days. So I just want, and then finally, I suppose, from the questions answered by Justin, and thank you for answering them, I think it's just clear that the management of the area around the site is not being managed. So it's highly likely that disturbances are going to spill over into the disused football pitch, into Cannon Hill Common, and onto the football field, and that isn't going to be managed. And I think that's the crucial bit here. The public safety aspect is not being managed. And I think that's all. Thank you.
And lastly, I have Leo Sheralamides on behalf of Jay Watson.
Ma'am, yes, thank you. My submissions are on behalf of Ms. Watson, but also Mr. Reeve, both of whom live in the same premises, one downstairs, one upstairs. Ma'am, by way of reminder, you and your colleagues know that the decision you must make is to be made in the interests of the overall local community, not the narrow interests of this particular operator, and that's made clear for you at paragraph 9.38 of the section 182 guidance. You and your colleagues will also be aware that the legislation, the Licensing Act, supports a number of other key aims and purposes which are vitally important and should be principal aims for you and your colleagues in making your decision. This includes providing a framework in which local communities can contribute to and enforce decisions about the most appropriate licensing strategies for their area. The submissions made before you today speak very much to that local area. And of course, it's about giving local residents the opportunity to have their say regarding licensing decisions that may affect them. So the most important voices this evening are those in the representations which you've read, which have been expanded on by the local residents who've all been incredibly polite. I'm not going to be, because this application is woefully inadequate, it is amateurish, it is ill-conceived, and it is poorly drafted. It is effectively being amended and made up to respond to questions. And I say that with no apology and with great confidence, because if we look at the section 182 guidance, it is very clear at paragraphs 8.41 to 8.49 exactly what is expected of an applicant. They are expected to undertake their own inquiries about the area. What you've heard is that the local councillor for this area was ignored. The nearest neighbour, we've just heard, was ignored and had to chase up the applicant to engage with them. They are required to highlight details about the local area, the physical environment, crime and disorder hotspots, proximity to residential premises, and risks to children. We know that the decking directly faces family homes and the bedrooms of children. So the risk assessment that is required so that you and your colleagues can make a decision that best affects the licensing objectives, and that has not been done. What is telling is that if you look at the operating schedule, which has been submitted by the applicant, and we can see the examples of this are on page 23, it alleges full control of noise. We have no details of the noise management plan, no details of noise arrangements, no details of the limits that are going to be in place. There's talk of the monitoring, but no details about what that monitoring is. And of course, as we know, when they say that they will keep music to a reasonable level, well, reasonable is entirely unenforceable. We know from decided case law, and your legal advisor, Mr. Bishop, will take you to retail development. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. Let me just pause a moment. Development Retail Limited and East Hampshire, that vague, unenforceable decisions demonstrate that they've not thought about the licensing objectives. And indeed, the absolute offer that they will deal with and prevent any noise nuisance is just plainly wrong. What is particularly surprising about this application, when we think about the nature of the drinking establishment that is proposed here, is when you look at that operating schedule, no regard has been given to CCTV. I mean, you'd think that was a pretty standard consideration. No regard has been given to the incident log. One fascinating lacuna in all of this is the fact that the applicant hasn't even addressed that most vital and pressing concerns in the licensing regime. What do you do with outdoor smokers? When you've got 200 people at your wedding party, when you've got them engaging themselves and having a party in the summer, and you close the door at 10 and they want to go outside and have a fag, where do they go? Where are they positioned? And the fact that the applicant doesn't have it on his operating schedule is quite appalling, and it demonstrates to you just how the fact that he's making this up as he goes along. He hasn't sat and thought about, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? And how will I engage it? The fact that the police have added a couple of pithy conditions themselves are not enforceable. If you think about and read the SIA condition on page 40, you'll see that the minimum of 2 SIA security guards must be at the premises at 9, not from 11, as Mr. Whitehead said, but only on the days that the premises is open beyond midnight. But licensable activities cease at midnight. So effectively, there is no security provision given the impact of that representation. And I appreciate that the police and the indeed your officers are quite busy at this time. So the application has changed as each question is answered. If we go back to the plan on page 37, quite misleadingly, you'll observe that there is no dancing area. Where is this dancing area that we refer to? Not on the plan. There's no sense that there's going to be any food or catering because there's no kitchen shown on the plan. Where is the food going to go? Where is it going to be prepared? And of course, when you've got a big party for 200 people, catering, DJs, the wedding parties and everything else that comes along with it needs to be accommodated. So albeit that the premises license is now being limited to the blue shaded area on the plan, there's a lack of clarity about the hours that it proposes to operate, because he at one says, oh, well, we're not going to operate later than 11 p.m, but then sometimes we will, because we'll have weddings and parties. And the other thing you hear about this site and the way it's being developed by this applicant is the increased commercialization and exploitation of this site. You've got the coffee van, you've got the markets, you've now got this late night drinking establishment and wedding party venue. You've also got the markets. You've also got this picnic area. One has to ask what next along with that. And when we think about the nature of the operation, how has the thoughts about the bar and the drinking establishment, along with the dancing, been arranged and organised? We just don't know. Where are the conditions in terms of amplification, in terms of the speakers, in terms of their location, in terms of the cutoff? In terms of the parking, this provides a really good example of how this applicant is making it up as he goes along. At first, the parking is going to be used, then parking is going to be discouraged. And then he says the car park will be closed other than when it's used for matches. Is that a condition he's going to be opening? Now, if you close this limited car park, other than for matches, which is one of the suggestions that has been made. Of course, it's a bit like multiple choice in that I will deal with the car park A, B or C, depending upon which answer I've given. Certainly a huge lack of certainty there. If you close the car park and you've got this wedding party for 200 people, what are they going to do? Walk there? Of course not. They're going to park on the fields in the local areas and in the local parking areas in front of the committee. Another poorly thought out condition is that to do with lighting. Paragraph 2.20 of the Section 182 guidance in the context of lighting gives some very clear advice. I don't even know if the applicant has read the Section 182 guidance. Of course, as you know, he's required to look at it. But measures to control light pollution will also require careful thought. Careful thought is not making it up as and when you get answered, and challenged questions. So the floodlights, today the floodlights are being pointed at the French school, but what about the car floodlights? If you've got floodlights at a certain level, the light reflects back. Will they be pointed down? Will they be pointed up? Do you even need car park lights if you're not going to be using the car park other than for sporting events? Again, it's not been clearly thought after. Lighting also has a direct impact on the Wildlife and Countryside Act. One of my colleagues quite correctly referred to bats. Bats, of course, as you know, are a protected species. They are protected by the Wildlife and Countryside Act. Offences under the Wildlife and Countryside Act are, of course, relevant in the context of licensing. They're relevant, and we know that they're relevant because of the case of Howitt and Blackpool, because they commit offences. But lighting, randomly in a past life, I used to be a trustee of the Bat Conservation Society, but lighting and the quality of lighting can have an impact on the way they feed. So there are offences being committed, both in terms of nuisance, but also in terms of the Wildlife and Countryside Act, which have not been considered as we see this sort of massive commercial exploitation of this, what was a local community pub. So lighting has been poorly thought about. We hear the SIA condition is misunderstood, signage is misunderstood, entrance, dispersal and exit. What we know is that you get to this place, which is in the middle of a field, through a dark lane, which he's not going to light, or alternatively in the winter and the autumn through a muddy path. So he hasn't really thought about that, nor has he thought about the fact that you're going to have people leaving an area who will be potentially in the drink, to use an old-fashioned term, who'll be going down a darkened area in an area surrounded by children and local residents. And again, let's think about the protection of children from harm as a licensing objective, which has been raised by one of my clients and indeed by everyone here. The protecting children from harm includes harms associated directly with alcohol consumption, but also wider harms, such as exposure to strong language and sexual expletives. Just think about how low that bar is set. You're a family who are no more than 30 yards from this premises. Your windows are overlooking that, and someone comes out after match day or on a wedding day and is careering down this muddy path, trying to find their car in the local area, hugging their husband or wife, saying, "I fucking love you." Imagine being woken up to that and having to explain that to the kids. Those kinds of expletives happen at night, but also during the day when the decking is being used. This is what it means to operate a high volume vertical drinking establishment with no food in the heart of a local community area. You can understand why there are so many representations of concern. And And we go from the sublime to the ridiculous in that the other condition that's responded to is daily rat catching. You've got this unregulated food van, concerns about unlawful alcohol sales over the summer. You're going to have this bar. You're going to have people potentially consuming and being policed in their picnics, as well as wedding parties. And you've got Justin Whitehead and his mates acting as some kind of rat catcher. It highlights the ridiculousness of this application, the thoughtlessness of this application, and the downright selfishness of this application. This application begs to be rejected forthwith and outright, and by all means he should go away and do his homework. Mum, I've taken far too much time. I could go on because the application is so poorly conceived, so poorly presented, and so poorly made. It's one of the worst applications I've seen as you and your colleagues know, my career as a licensing barrister, because this is what I do exclusively. But it hasn't been risk assessed. He hasn't followed the Section 182 guidance. He hasn't had regard to the 4 licensing objectives. He's failed to engage with local residents. And to end with the words of the Court of Appeal in Hope and Glory, the test for you and your colleagues to determine today is this premises and the proposed application, the operation of which changes depending on the way in which the wind is blowing, is it suitable for this particular location where my clients and all the people that have made representations to you are saying we are effectively a family-led residential community overlooking this premises which seeks to intensify and turn itself into a commercial, high-volume, vertical drinking establishment? The simple answer to the Court of Appeals test is no. This is entirely unsuitable, both as drafted and presented today, and indeed generally. So, Ma'am, on behalf of Ms. Watson and Mr. Reeve, I would urge you to summarily reject this application because it effectively is so poor and so ill-conceived. Obviously, I'm available to answer any questions that arise from those submissions. And if required to, I can call upon my client, though Mr. Reeves is not available today because of work commitments. So I've only got Ms. Watson with me. Ma'am, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Well done.
That ends the people I have listed to speak. And now is the opportunity for the applicant and the committee to ask questions of those representations. If no one wishes to speak at this, Justin, do you wish to ask questions of the representations?
I don't wish to ask any questions, no, thank you.
Thank you. My fellow committee members, do you have any questions? I'll take that as a no. I will now ask the licensing officer for any comments or clarification.
I've not got any comments, but just a point of clarification, Chair, to the hours that the applicant has proposed for New Year's Eve, the non-standard timings. If Justin could confirm that as well, please, for us.
Okay, are there any closing comments from the interested parties, or has all been said that needed to be said?
I think Leo covered it all.
Now, I would like to ask for any closing statements by the applicant, Justin.
All I can say, everything that I've said, I've hand on heart, been honest. As far as making it up as I go along, I'm just trying to use the advice that I have had from the locals. We meet a lot of locals every single day at the business there at the moment. And we certainly have made some changes since the application has been made, because we really are trying to do the best we can for the local residents.
Thank you. The subcommittee are about to retire to closed session, and I invite the legal advisor and clerk to provide advice. Once I have closed the hearing, our clerk will disconnect you from the meeting room. All parties will receive a written copy of the decision notice as soon as possible. I therefore now close the hearing